Welcome to the March Mobility and Access Coalition meeting. We have a wonderful panel presentation today, and we're going to have some updates after the panel presentation. So it's good to see everybody. And Jessica's been letting people in on the back end, and then Maya's sharing the slides. So I just want to thank them for helping with this meeting today. We have other folks on the call that are also helping out in different ways. So go ahead, next slide. So just a reminder, I know that we're all pros at this now, but when you registered for Zoom, you would have gotten an email from Zoom, and it has a one-tap phone call. So if you lose internet connection, which happens from time to time, you can go ahead and click on that on your cell phone, and it will add all of the meeting details. So you just have to click it once and then join the call. You will have to unmute yourself. You won't be able to see the presentation, but we don't have very many presentation items today. So I think you're probably pretty good. You can just listen in to the call. There's a few Zoom housekeeping features. So in the bottom left-hand corner, there's the mute button that you can click on and off. We ask that everybody mute themselves unless they're speaking. Also, if you're speaking, if you can leave your camera on, that would be great. I understand that sometimes we have poor internet connection, so if you're not able to do that, we totally understand. Also, you can click on the participants icon, the people, and you can see who else is in the meeting. At this point, I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves in the chat with their name and their organization. This helps us keep minutes a little bit easier and go back and see who was on the call. Also, it helps you know who to reach out to if somebody said something that's really interesting that you want to follow up on. The next items, I see a few people putting their names in the chat. Thank you for that. And this meeting is being recorded, and we do post these meetings on our YouTube page, and we include it in the newsletter that we send out monthly. So you can always go back and find previous MAC meetings recorded. Next slide, Maya. So just a brief overview again, the MAC format for 2024. We are meeting the third Tuesday of the month from 1 to 2:30. And really this is focusing on capacity building, networking with across nonprofit, government programs, transportation providers, human services organizations. We also have presentations throughout the year. And then today we have a panel discussion, which I'm really looking forward to. Next slide. And just kind of ground us, like why we do what we do. At the MAC, we believe that transportation access improves quality of life, allows us to have access to opportunities, economic and social, and it helps people meet their basic needs. And really, we want to have people have multiple transportation options because transportation options, they fail us sometimes. Our car breaks down, the bus might not have a driver for that run, and we have to have backup options. So we just try to take the multimodal approach and focus on equitable transportation access. Next slide. Here's our agenda for today. So we're going to start with the panel discussion. Our panel discussion today, it really is focused on volunteer programs, and then we'll have some updates from the MAP Mobility Working Group. I'm not sure if Rebecca's on the call, but the IDD mill levy, the intellectual developmental disabilities mill levy has a call for applications for funding. We'll talk about the LIVE webinar expansion, or the LIVE expansion webinar. We'll also do a brief recap of the bike train webinar that Melissa hosted. Encourage people to take the survey for the 119 branding and wayfinding. And then also just mention the National Transit Employee Appreciation messages. Next slide. Okay, so does anybody have any questions before we get started? Great. Please feel free to raise your hand during the panel discussion and just put your questions in the chat, and we'll try to make sure that we get those voiced. We have a few questions that we're going to go through, and then we'll open it up to everybody here to ask their questions. We may change, just for the panelists' sake, we may change the order of the questions if it seems like it will help support some of the dialogue with the participants. So we have a wonderful panel today with Adriana Torres from VIA Mobility Services, Lark Rambo from Coal Creek Meals on Wheels, Joan Raderman from Circle of Care, Sarah Grove from Thorne Nature Experience, and Jessica Villena Sanchez from Mobility for All. And really, we tried to balance volunteer programs serving different populations, like youth, seniors. Also, we tried to balance different types of programs that are helping people meet their basic needs so that we can have a cross-sector learning and sharing of ideas. So you can go ahead and stop sharing, Maya, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the panel discussion. And I'll call on the panelists throughout this process. The first question that we have today is really just about introductions. So I'm going to call on each of the panelists and ask them to introduce yourself, your organization, and how volunteers serve your target population. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Adriana first from VIA. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Thank you, Angel. Hi, everyone. My name is Adriana Torres. I'm the operations manager at VIA Mobility Services. We provide transportation for people who are 60 plus or people who have a long-term disability or short-term disability.
And how do you rely on volunteers to serve your populations?
Of course. So our volunteers, I mean, the way that we look at it is we are able to provide all these trips that without them, unfortunately, we have to be denied. You know, you look at back in 2023, we averaged about 300 new riders each month. And for 2023, we were able to provide almost 5,000 trips with our volunteers. And out of those 5,000 trips, it was done to about 1,000, a little bit over 1,000 people that were unduplicated. So without our volunteers, all of those riders wouldn't be able to have a trip.
Yeah, wonderful. So you just use them to expand your capacity of your paid drivers. That's great. Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Lark. Lark, would you introduce yourself and talk about how you use volunteers?
Absolutely. I'm Lark Rambo. I'm the executive director of Coal Creek Meals on Wheels. And we serve, as you would expect, meals. We do that in a couple different ways. We deliver, of course, to Lafayette, Louisville, Erie, and Superior residents. We also have a cafe that we operate daily, and then we have a new grab and go program at the Lafayette Library as well, where folks can come and grab meals, no questions asked as well. So we use volunteers in all areas of our organization. We have over 290 active volunteers. Of course, the main volunteer opportunity is our drivers. So we have volunteers that come and pick up the meals and then take them out into the community. We have currently 21 routes. So every day we need at least 21 volunteers to go and deliver those meals. We also have servers in our cafe. We have folks that help in the kitchen, and then we have folks that help us with different, administrative tasks and things like that as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It's really important to bring food to people if they're not able to travel outside of the house to go get it themselves. So that's great. Really inspiring. Next, we have Joan. Joan, I know that you oversee the Circle of Care program in Boulder. Would you like to introduce yourself and talk about how you use volunteers? We're still on mute if you're trying to unmute yourself, Joan.
Here we go. All right, here I am.
Yep.
Thank you. Joan Raderman. I'm actually the founder of Circle of Care. I founded Circle of Care about 20 years ago after serving in a senior living community as an administrator and realizing how confined older adults are by lack of transportation and assisted companions to get them out and about. Our volunteer program could not run without the people that mobilize the older adults. We curate a calendar of up to 200 cultural events a year, and volunteers pick up older adults in their senior living communities in their homes and bring them to these arts and cultural programs, and both the volunteer and the older adult gets to go for free. So I'm big on incentivized civic engagement. And at this point, we're at about 2.5 million of resources in the community that we give away to our volunteers and the people they help.
Yeah, wonderful. I think we hear a lot about transportation to medical appointments and to meet your basic needs, but that social emotional connection really like deserves the same amount of weight, I guess, when we're talking about people and where they need to go. Thank you for all you do.
Sure.
Next on our list, we have Sarah Grove from Thorne Nature Experience. Would you like to introduce yourself and talk about how you use volunteers?
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Sarah Grove. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here as the volunteer manager with Thorne Nature Experience. Thorne is an organization that is out in the community getting our kids, school age, mostly in preschool age, out and engaged in nature. And so we have programs, whether it's after school or field trips or in schools or summer camp or preschool, that get our kids out there. And so how we use volunteers is as teaching assistants. Well, some of our programs, our field trip program, would rely solely on volunteers, and it hasn't since the pandemic, but we would love that. But also just extra hands, eyes, ears for our instructors. Most of our programs have a 1 to 12 ratio, so 1 Thorne teacher and 12 students. And so having another grown-up or mature person who is helping the instructor is just another layer of security, but also another person as a teacher and as a mentor. And additionally, we have volunteers who serve virtually and also kind of behind the scenes, supporting our administrative roles, whether that's for supply maintenance or, you know, whatever filing, database entry kind of things that we might have. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, great. Thank you for joining us. Next, we have Jessica Villena Sanchez, who works for Mobility for All. So I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, yes. So my name is Jessica. As most of you know, I work for Boulder County Mobility for All, and I'm also the volunteer manager for our volunteer program. And our program focuses on helping people navigate different transportation apps. So we train our volunteers to teach workshops on Uber, Lyft, Google Maps, RTD My Ride, and the Transit app. And the importance of our volunteers is that they help us spread the word, and the goal of the program that's focusing on equitable transportation access. We want to target populations that are seniors, low-income populations, Spanish-speaking youth, populations with disabilities. So our volunteers live in different parts of the county, and they experience, or maybe they are part of those communities. So they're more connected, and they can help us find and educate other people on how they can navigate those transportation apps.
Great, thank you, Jessica. We also have several on the call today. So yeah, it's great to see them shine. Yeah. So the next question really is about like, what characteristics do you think are important for volunteers? And how do you, what strategies do you use to try to recruit and retain volunteers that have those characteristics? So I know that there's, you know, we have job descriptions for people when we're hiring them, but what are those key things that would be on your job description if you don't have one for your volunteers? And we'll go ahead and start with Lark to begin with for this one.
Sure. Yeah, you know, I mean, I think dedication is the biggest thing we look for. We want someone who is really going to stay with us for a while. But I think also just having a really strong connection to the mission of our organization is important. So having, you know, many of our volunteers have been acquainted to other Meals on Wheels programs that maybe serve their grandparents, or, you know, maybe they volunteered to deliver meals with their parents when they were younger. And so they kind of already have a connection. Some have joined us because they have a neighbor that, you know, they knew needed extra support, and we were able to start providing meals for them. And so they thought, oh, that's a great opportunity for me to be involved. But I think connection to the mission is really, really important because it's, you know, I mean, they're giving their time. And so having, you know, some sort of internal motivation to want to support the organization, I think is really important for the long term.
Yeah, wonderful. And do you find that people mostly get recruited through word of mouth because they are connected to the mission, or do you have to do like targeted campaigns?
Yeah, people always tell me I'm crazy, but no, we just don't really recruit volunteers. They kind of come to us, which is wonderful. So we're really unique in that way. But yeah, it's all word of mouth. Either they seek us out as the local Meals on Wheels program, or they hear from a friend or family member about our programs.
Yeah, wonderful. So next, Joan, for your social cultural events, what specific types of volunteers are you looking for, and how do you target recruitment, or do you have any particular strategies that you use to retain
So
volunteers?
at the core of why we do what we do is certainly to end social isolation and improve people's health through community access. And I need every single volunteer. I do a monthly volunteer orientation, and you know, when you're discovering what works and what doesn't work, I realize people find that extremely valuable to kind of catch my drift of why they're here. And for most people, they self-select when they realize they are not a good candidate to be in the program. And what I find is when I meet people and I realize that number one, are they mindful? And mindfulness is really primary. They are transporting usually 3 people in a vehicle to get to a program, and they need to be extremely attentive to the safety and liability we also hold. So mindfulness is number one. And during those volunteer orientations, I can quickly see who might not be a candidate, and they're eliminated at that point. Which is why we have volunteers for over 20 years. As far as recruiting, we have never had a recruit. It is word of mouth. It's also, the United Way does post our orientations in the Daily Camera, and people often looking to get involved do a Google search and find us. So when I was designing this, an important component was understanding the needs of the volunteers, not only the clients we serve, understanding the needs of the over 50 cultural organizations that work with us and community organizations, and everybody has a specific need they want to see happen. So those volunteers are often getting $100 cultural concert ticket, so they're very motivated.
Yeah, that's great. We'll get to motivations here in a little bit, but it sounds like you've got the key here on, your volunteers and how to motivate them. So Sarah, I know that working with kids can require specific skill sets. So I'm wondering, what characteristics do you look for, and how do you recruit the necessary volunteers for your programs?
Absolutely. I think I'm going to echo some of what Lark and Joan have already said about having folks that are mission driven. So here at Thorne, our mission is joyful, place-based, hands-on learning. And so having someone that's aligned with that, who is comfortable in nature themselves, who is passionate about nature, is the foundation of what I'm looking for in a volunteer. I'm also looking for folks who have a wide range of life experience, whether they are still in high school, they still have different pieces and parts of their life that they can share with our kiddos and with our instructors, but all the way through, seniors and retired folks who have had a lot of life, and just bringing unique pieces and parts of themselves to the program is really important to us. It's a bonus if they like teaching. It's a bonus if they've already been a teacher, and they'll have to like kids. There's just no way around that. If they don't like kids, I might shift them more towards an administrative project that's not public facing. And recruitment has been hard. So this is where I'm going to deviate from what Lark and Joan have said already. I am actively out there looking for folks and engaging with our community. My target volunteer group is during the year is college students. We're super close to CU, and always retired folks. And since the pandemic, and I wasn't here at Thorne before the pandemic, but since the pandemic, it's been really hard to engage in those two populations because of, especially for our seniors who might not want to be working with kiddos who we love them, but they are germ bots, and they carry a lot of icks and funks and goos. And then our college students are just taking more credit hours than they ever have been for. And a lot of them, if they are taking a lighter load, are working. And so that's been really tricky for recruitment. We're fortunate that in the summer camp season, we've got so many youth. So that's going to be like high school students from 12 and up that are available for community service hours for one of their various programs or sports teams or National Honor Society. So a lot of folks help during summer camp, but just can't serve during the school year. So that's maybe where I deviate is recruitment is hard. I'm at tabling events. I'm on every website platform. We've got job descriptions posted on our website. We post on social media, all of that. So I'm open ears for other recruitment opportunities. So I'm taking those notes too.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I think that we can, I mean, the intent is to have community and be able to share approaches and resources and, just spread the word. So thank you. Jessica, for the ambassador program, like what specific characteristics are you looking for and like how do you recruit volunteers?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the most important characteristic for us is that we want to find people who are interested or have experience using public transit or different modes of transportation. And that I'm jealous of all of you who don't have to recruit because it's not that easy. I think, for a lot of us in this phone call, we know the importance of public transit, but a lot of people have never used other modes or have grown using cars. So they might not be as interested in learning how to use Uber or Google Maps. So that will be a good one, a very important one for them to have experience using public transit. And then the other one is that they're willing to learn how to use those apps. So obviously there's a technology component to this volunteering position, but we have workshops and onboarding processes in both English and Spanish. So in that sense, they don't have to be experts on technology. They just need to be willing to learn. And I know that Marina asked in the chat about if there's any bilingual volunteers. Yeah, so our program has 4 Spanish speakers. And I will say that finding them was through connections. I think Caro is in the call too, but Caro Neri, I connected with her and then she connected me to the 3 ladies that we have. And I will say that there's a very different cultural component within my experience in the Latinx community. I think that maybe the concept of volunteering is not as prevalent as it is for other populations. So I think that's good to have that to meet people where they are and have a different pacing. And then related to what are the key strategies for recruitment, we do want to get volunteers throughout the year. So we do a lot of outreach. When we go to outreach events, we're always looking for people, if they seem interested in public transit, if they have used it, we want to recruit there. We also do press releases. We also share news in our newsletters and also in Boulder County Housing Authority sites because we want to have volunteers there also. So yeah, we rely on our partners.
Yeah, great, thank you. I think that Adriana, you're next with VIA. So how specifically do you all recruit people to drive for you? And then are there characteristics that you're looking for in your volunteers?
Absolutely. I think the number one thing that we're looking for is that compassion, right? We want our volunteers to be comfortable in working with seniors and people with disabilities. And then after that, we're able to train them and get them comfortable with the area that we serve, all of that, tablets. For our recruiting, we've done some outreach events. Anytime we do an outreach events, we also send or give people out flyers in case they know someone who would like to volunteer. We've done volunteer fairs as well, Carbon Valley, Boulder County, to try to recruit more volunteers. Sympathize with Jessica and Sarah here. Yep, it's easier said than done. A lot of the volunteers, however, that we do have are based on just word of mouth. They heard maybe their neighbor uses Via to get to the doctor's appointment, and then that's what interests them to start volunteering with us.
Yeah, great. I'm gonna kind of shuffle around the order of the questions a little bit just to kind of riff off of what Marina's question was and Jessica's response. So in particular, I think that a lot of organizations are looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion with a new lens, especially after COVID and the murder of George Floyd. So like, how do your programs really try to center DEI principles? And do you have any, like, how do you ensure that your programs are reaching equitable populations? And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joan first for this question.
I like this question. It's because there's areas where there's been a challenge within our organization. What I find is because I'm curating a calendar of cultural events that then attracts people to those programs, it is necessary to include programs that will appeal to a diverse population, that they too will want to go to. Not everybody wants to go hear Bach. So I have to change the programming. But the other thing is there's been a cultural chasm, because I have reached out to the NAACP. We have been looking at ways for us to partner and do things together. And yet there's a different cultural aspect to it that we're still both learning. Whether or not people from that community want to actually accept donations or accept rides. It goes much deeper when it comes, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to diversity and how to do it. And it takes far more time. At this point, we only serve low income and disabled older adults. And those low income older adults are in every population. And there's a place for everybody to be included in this program. But it needs the time and the depth to go deeper into what would actually make a partnership and expanding diversity work.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that a lot of organizations look for that quick fix for DEI, and if equity were quick, then it would have been done already, right?
Exactly.
So I feel like, yeah, I sympathize with the amount of time and just in general, the importance of actually doing the hard work though. So Sarah, for you, like, how do you all center DEI principles when you're with your volunteers or with your programming?
Yeah, I think I can echo what you just said about the quick fix around DEIA work, and it is hard work. It's something that in our industry, which is environmental education, which is being outdoors, it's something that Thorne recognizes, that the outdoor industry has historically been a white, affluent industry, open to those who can afford it, who are able-bodied, who are young, and part of our community, and one of our main pillars here at Thorne, is to make sure nature is for all. And so we have our Nature Kids, or Jovenes de Naturalis program, which is specifically targeting our Latinx families in Boulder, Lafayette, and Longmont to make sure that nature is accessible and that we can break down as many barriers as we can for our program to reach these kiddos, to make sure that they can get into nature. And how that affects our volunteer program is our volunteers currently are not very diverse. I think that is maybe a place where we're struggling as a department. I mean, first off, as an organization, it's still our work that we have to keep DIA in our forefront of our minds, because most of us here are white, and so we are working on decentering whiteness. Most of us are able-bodied here, and so we're working on using a different lens to even tackle just our programming. And so volunteerism, I guess I had to backtrack to explain this part, but volunteerism, I think, is impacted by that too, just with the systematic pressures that are on people in our community. And I'm not sure that there's a way that I can make my volunteer program, especially coming from my company, accessible to every single person because of the nature of volunteerism, that it is something that people donate their time and it's typically unpaid. I currently have unpaid internships, which it doesn't feel great. About the only opportunity we do have for paid contribution for teenagers is within our Nature Kid program. We do have a Nature Kid internship, which works with other organizations in our community to help get our older teens in our community, in our Lafayette communities, in our Latinx communities, an internship, which is stipend. And again, that's our only stipend internship or volunteer opportunity that's out there. And that's something that I'm actively working on. I'm talking with other volunteer professionals in the same industry of how to make that happen. And of course, the barriers that stand in our way is money, is time. I mean, the time in which we need volunteers is during the school day, during the work week. And if someone has a job, they can't stop working just to go volunteer to be with kids all the time. We are seeing some organizations that are offering VTO, so volunteer time off, but that's few and far between, and it's just starting to pick up. So this is something that, again, I need to learn more about and know my role in it as well of, you know, being a white woman that's in charge of volunteers is just another place of knowing my privilege and knowing that volunteering is a privilege. And so that's something that we are navigating every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That was a very thoughtful response. I mean, all the responses are thoughtful, but I think like the luxury of time really comes to mind, right? Like, do you have the time to be able to dedicate to this, and who has the time? Yeah. Thank you for your additions. Jessica, I know that you spoke to the volunteer, like the bilingual volunteer aspect. Did you want to add anything else about our DA efforts?
Yeah, I think an important approach to creating a volunteer program that is diverse and equitable is by actually going and trying to recruit people who are part of those communities. So we have volunteers who are seniors, they may have a temporary disability or a long-term disability, they might speak Spanish, they live in different parts of the county. And I think that really helps me learn about what are the specific mobility needs in specific communities. It's not the same, to have a disability and live in Boulder than to speak Spanish mostly and live in Longmont. So the other thing that we do is that our bilingual outreach is always in both, obviously English and Spanish. And we also support people with a stipend. So we can't pay our volunteers, but we give them credits for Uber and Lyft monthly so they can improve their own mobility. Culturally, I think that it's important, at least in my experience with the with our Latinx ambassadors, I think it's important to let them know, to empower them and to make them see how much we need their help, especially if they're already connected to the specific communities that we want to reach. I think trust is a very important part of the whole process. Constantly asking our ambassadors how they feel and what are the specific, target issues that they see and that they feel hurt, instead of doing like a fits-all approach. Like it's not the same. So I think that tailoring that approach is important too.
Yeah, wonderful. That flexibility, right, to meet people where they're at, and use. So we'll go ahead and switch to Adriana for VIA. Like, how are you all focusing on getting diverse drivers, and then also making sure that your programs reach diverse audiences?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, I mean, at VIA, our staff is pretty diverse.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to recruiting diverse volunteers, I think it is a little bit harder. And kind of piggybacking on what Jessica said, like culturally, a lot of people really don't have the time, right? I come from a very Hispanic background, as well as we've done like outreach events where we've met some Hispanic people that have to be taking care of their parents, grandparents, and although that extra time that they have to be able to volunteer, really doesn't exist anymore because they have to be sending or spending that time with their loved ones. But we've tried to recruit volunteers. We've been to the Cinco de Mayo festival in Longmont, and we get a lot of people, right? Their parents, grandparents use us and they wish they could volunteer. Unfortunately, the time just won't allow them to.
Yeah, thank you. And noticing a theme about like time. I know that we talked about this before, but Lark, can you speak to how Coal Creek Meals on Wheels is able to impact the DEI efforts?
Yeah, I would say we're actually pretty new on this DEI journey as an organization. Just under a year ago, we founded our first DEI committee, and that group really started to look at our organization as a whole and think about what we wanted to improve. They did everything from we did everything from looking at our website, looking at our printed materials, thinking about the way that we recruit and orient our volunteers and all that sort of thing. And so we started that process. We're now in the phase where we're starting to create our DEI statement and then working towards creating some different initiatives that we want to work towards as an organization. But a few things have come out of that project. One is that we created a participant advisory committee. And so we now gather our clients quarterly. We provide transportation, we give them a small stipend, and we encourage them to come in and provide feedback, to share their ideas, what they would like to see from our organization, what challenges they are experiencing. And so we do that quarterly, and that's been really effective. I think we've had 3, maybe 4 actually. I think we've done a full year of the participant advisory committee, and that's been very successful. We also bring in our volunteers to do kind of roundtable discussions periodically too, to get their feedback and ideas and ways that we can improve. And so that kind of came out of that. And another initiative that came out of our DEI efforts so far is our library grab and go program at the City of Lafayette. We realized that our cafe is not necessarily a space that everyone feels comfortable in. I come from the education world, and I joke that it kind of feels like a middle school lunchroom sometimes, where there's cliques and if you move their table and it's all over. And so we know that that space isn't necessarily the right fit for everyone. And some people don't feel comfortable sharing addresses and personal information where we could deliver, or don't have a home that we can deliver to. And so we wanted to create an accessible space that's on public transit. Our cafe is not currently on public transit route, but the library is very accessible. It's already, kind of a gathering place for the community. And so it's a place where people can come and grab a meal. Again, no questions asked. And so that came out of our DEI efforts as well. So I don't know exactly what our DEI journey will look like at this point, but I know that we plan to do some education efforts. We plan to do some work on our website, and I'm sure a lot of other ideas and strategies will come out of it too.
Yeah, great. We'd love to have you follow back up with us and let us know what efforts you're taking, so we can learn from each other.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask one more question of our pre-existing questions. If you have a question, so that we can leave some space for the members of the attendees of the meeting. So please put your questions in the chat, and we'll be able to ask those after this. So kind of my final question is, we kind of talked a little bit about compensation through stipends or credits. But can you provide examples of how you've successfully recognized your volunteers and appreciated them? How do you show your volunteers that you appreciate the work that they're doing for the community? And I'll go ahead and start with Sarah for this next one.
Absolutely. This is my favorite part. I love my volunteers, and personally, I love connecting with people. And so that's where it starts, is just to get to know my volunteers the best I can. There is a barrier in there some places because of how many times I have to switch what hat I'm wearing, whether I'm teaching or if I can be the volunteer manager, or if I am at a manager's meeting, or if I could be the volunteer manager. So in general, for appreciation, I have recently sent out a survey asking my volunteers how they like to be appreciated. I personally am a gift giver, and so I love to make sure that every end of a semester, my volunteer gets a card signed by at least me, if not the educators that they supported, and that there's a gift that's associated with that, whether it's a a nature brochure or an ID guide or binoculars, something like that. And then on top of that, there is Volunteer Appreciation Week, which happens in late April every year. It's a national event, and I absolutely try to have a gathering or a mixer between staff and our volunteers and have door prizes, have food. I always try to have snacks for our volunteers. I have recently been trying to incorporate our volunteer bulletin board to make sure that all of our staff here knows our volunteers. I think that's just part of the knowing, part of being part of the team, inviting our volunteers into trainings, whether they're DEIA trainings, whether they're cool trainings about how to make cordage, just adding those different layers. I think just making them feel like they're part of the team is that recognition, is that celebration. I'm again always open to what other people want and what they're needing. Most of my volunteers, I don't think, value the gifts. They are always like, oh, I don't need this. Or like, you didn't have to do that. But I think I do. I mean, I think I want to show them how much they are valued, and there's not enough words to be able to say that. I can ask our development team to share how well having our volunteer numbers reflects for donors and for grant writing. But again, those are just words and numbers. And so I always try to just share everything that I can and be as transparent and close with my volunteers as possible.
Yeah, great. I love that. I love the celebration, inviting them in and then creating that team culture so that they feel included. Great. Jessica, how do you go about acknowledging the work of the volunteers and recognizing everything they do?
Yeah, so I talked about the monthly stipend. So we provide our volunteers with Uber and Lyft credits. We also try and focus too on the personal side. So for example, last year we went on a Christmas travel training. So we invited all of our volunteers to take the bus from wherever they were and take the FF1 all the way to Union Station. And then we went to the Christmas market there. We got lunch together. So I think that was a good way to do both, get to know each other more, but also learn how to get to Denver using public transit. We also give them swag items. So we printed business cards for all of ambassadors, name badges, and we give them tote bags. Within our monthly meetings, a lot of them are virtual. So I like to spend some time focusing on those interpersonal connections, like how are you, how's it going? And then also we have a couple scheduled for this year that are in person. And I also really want to listen to their needs. For example, a couple of months ago, one of our ambassadors wanted a master calendar, or she thought that it would be easier for her to see the opportunities to volunteer if there was a place where she could go. So I was working to get that calendar finalized for everybody. And also one of our volunteers got nominated to, the county has the Volunteer Program Enrichment Awards. So making sure, to nominate somebody and then knowing that she was one of the awardees, it was also very nice. So keeping those opportunities to celebrate the program, and then also a very well engaged volunteer too.
Yeah, great, thank you. I think the county, they're going to be posting all of the county volunteers that got nominated over the volunteer recognition week or appreciation week. So watch out for those on social media. So Adriana, how do you all acknowledge the impact that your drivers have on the program, and how do you recognize their efforts?
We have a yearly luncheon with our volunteer drivers. It's a good opportunity for everybody to come together, share the stories from riders, or just get to know them personally. A lot of our volunteers don't volunteer on the same day, so they don't get to see each other every time they come in. So it's always good to be able to eat and share those stories. We give them little goodie bags as well, with some swag, things that they need for safety or to be able to do their job. as well as I like to spend some one-on-one time with them, just so I know, do we need to change their schedules so that it can fit if they're, summer's coming. So, we want to make sure that if they're going to do vacation, that we have that in so that they don't have to come in, help and volunteer. And to be sure that we are answering any questions that they might have, and provide them with the tools so that they are able to be out there safely.
Yeah, great, thank you. Lark, how about you all? How do you recognize the work of your volunteers?
Yeah, so I'm going to echo a lot of what everyone's already said, but we have our annual Volunteer Appreciation Week. Sometimes that is a luncheon where everyone's invited. Sometimes we do something special each day during that week, but we always recognize all of our volunteers at that time and get them, some sort of branded goodie during that week as well. Monthly in our newsletter, in our volunteer newsletter, we always highlight a volunteer or two as well. And so we kind of give their personal story and why they volunteer and why they're great and all that kind of thing. We also, every day when people are picking up their meals, we have baked goods from our cafe or from our kitchen. So our sous chef always makes sure that they have, fresh baked cookies or something out there. During the winter, we'll do hot cocoa. We always have coffee. And we really want to encourage our volunteers to interact with each other and hang out for a little bit and chat. And then kind of what everyone else has said too, just it's all about relationships. We really want to connect with each of our volunteers individually, not just our volunteer coordinator, not just me, but everyone on the team, gets to know their name. They all wear name badges, which is helpful because there's a lot of them to keep straight. But, recognizing them by name and talking to them, asking them how their day is and that sort of thing is just, I think, helps to make them feel a little bit more connected to our program as well.
Yeah, that human connection and just, everybody likes it when people use their name. So that's good. I'm looking through the meeting chat. It looks like there's lots of discussion about the kitty cat, Denise's calico kitty cat, I'm assuming. So hopefully I didn't miss a question before that. But I just wanted to point out that Commissioner Levy said that she sees Joan's volunteers at cultural events and it seems like they're always having a good time. So sounds like I should probably try to volunteer now if I feel like FOMO, feel a little bit left out here. Then we had Marina's question about bilingual volunteers. And I know that recruits from diverse communities was touched on a little bit during the DEI question. Was there anybody besides Jessica who also has bilingual volunteers? I don't know if we got to that.
We have some folks that have bilingual abilities, but that's not part of our recruitment. Like it doesn't say on our application must be bilingual.
Yeah, okay, wonderful.
Yeah, ours was similar as well.
Yeah, so some, but you don't have like positions that are required to be bilingual. Okay, that's good. Marina, do you want to add anything to that question about bilingual or diverse communities?
Not really. I want to congratulate all the panelists. Amazing information. Thank you so much. Great work. And yeah, I mean, I work a lot with the Latinx community, especially with the Explorando Senderos, and we go to a different trail in Boulder County every Saturday. So I've learned so much from the mobility component of this community, trying to get from, mostly mobile home parks to different trailheads. I know there's different trailheads that already have transportation, so that's awesome. And I asked this question precisely because of that, Angel. One of the things I wanted to share maybe for what I have learned from these communities, mobility challenges, is that it would be great, and I'm looking at Thorne and the amazing work that they always do on the outdoors, connecting with the outdoors. And since we work with family units, it would be great if, through Thorne or many of your programs, there was like a destination. It could be even going to Denver for a baseball game. Right. And so there are events where the Latinx community really loves to attend, or, opportunities for them to get more engaged, a festival. We did that, a little of that when we did that fair, Angel. So I'm always thinking about, how can we centralize people going to a place because they want to go to a baseball game and they are certain that there will be volunteers, bilingual volunteers, to get them in a bus and get them on their way. So this is where the rationale I'm using, and even carpooling. Sometimes they don't know a neighbor is going, and I'm just, I'm just very inspired by all of your work, and always trying to also support the community from my end and new ideas, what I hear, etc. But thank you so much. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you for your valuable insight on this. And I do think that we could probably follow up and see if we could do a group trip with our ambassador crew to go do something fun for Latinx groups that you work with. So also just to point out that Lindsay Neville from Area Agency on Aging did say that they can include any call for volunteers in their Age Well in Boulder County newsletter that they send out. So they have quite a few subscribers to that newsletter. So Lindsay will probably, if she hasn't already, we can put her email address in the chat and you can send her all of your job postings. And I think we talked a little bit about carpooling, but does anybody else on the panel want to talk a little bit more about carpooling? Like, do your volunteers carpool to with community members? No.
So
I guess oh, go ahead.
Part of the volunteer, or one of the volunteer activities that they can do for us is take somebody on their first trip. So I know at least one of our ambassadors this year, she was able to go on a trip with a lady who wanted to learn how to get to the grocery store in Boulder. So that could be one example. A couple of our ambassadors, if they need to come to Denver for an event, usually they carpool. And if they can't, and if they don't have a way to get to where the event is, we also give them transportation supports. Like that could be, accessorized tickets or Uber or Lyft credits, so that they don't have any mobility barriers to come and learn more about mobility.
Yeah, thanks. And I do know, I don't think that that Commuting Solutions is on the call still, but they do have a workplace ambassador program where people volunteer to help people learn how to plan their commute to work. I'm not sure if Marjorie already hopped off, but I see Marina, you raised your hand. Would you like to respond to that?
Just a short question. Is there a phone number where community members can call, say that I don't know how to get to the airport and I don't have, the understanding of brochures and, how to access the information because I don't have the technology or whatnot? Is there a phone number where community members can call Mobility for All or any of you saying, I'm planning on going to the airport on Saturday, how do I get there? Kind of question.
Yeah, we do have a phone number, and we also have virtual booking appointments that people can sign up for. And I'll look to the team to track down that information to put in the chat.
That would be great. Yeah.
We do. We have different staff assigned to information and assistance every day. There's also Dr. Mack, who helps people like on the regional level find what transportation options work for them. Thank you, Zoe, for hopping on. It's good to see you. But yeah, we do help people plan. And then also if it's RTD specific, RTD has their customer service line and they can help people as well. So yeah, we'll put all those resources. Thank you, Melissa, for putting that there. Okay, so I know that we're pretty much at time, but I wanted to give each of the panelists an opportunity to just do like one quick best practice, like 1 or 2 sentences that you think for like managing a successful program. So I'll go ahead and I think I'll start with Jessica since you're the one I haven't started with yet. So just one quick best practice for volunteer programs.
Oh my gosh. I think, like I already said, just meeting people where they are, obviously treat people with respect and get them excited about the work that they do because it's very important.
Yeah, I like that. Excitement's contagious. Adriana, how do you, what's one quick takeaway that you all have from VIA?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always try to stay stay safe out there on the road. So we provide our volunteers with defensive driving and a past class that shows them how, how to treat people well and all of that, people with disabilities and seniors.
Perfect. I love it. Lark, what's one quick best practice?
Relationships, relationships, relationships. It's all about relationships. Just making sure that your volunteers feel connected to your program through those personal connections with other volunteers and with staff and with
Yeah.
clients, of course.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Joan, what's one quick takeaway you have?
Remember that the volunteers are just as important as your clients. Create a culture of belonging so that everybody feels like they're an essential piece of the program, and incentivize your programs for volunteers. And I'm happy to offer my services to help any organization. And I will share the resources I've accumulated for your volunteers and give them to yours. So that's what I do well, and I'm happy to share it.
Great. Thank you, Joan. I love it. And then last but not least, Sarah, what's one best practice that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think it's around training, making sure our volunteers know what they're doing at all times and never to ask them to do something we wouldn't do ourselves.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know we still have some more updates, but I just want to make sure that we give our panelists a round of applause, virtual or virtual round of applause or physical. But thank you so much. This is a great opportunity. If you feel comfortable putting your contact information in the chat so that people can follow up with you, you can do that. If not, we'll also include this recording in the newsletter that's going to go out that Maya's sending out this week. But thank you so much. I know that we had some changes in panelists, and I just appreciate everybody being flexible and stepping up and representing your programs. Thank you. So for the last half hour, thank you so much, Lark, and everybody for putting their information in the chat. So we do have a few quick updates, and this isn't necessarily all inclusive, but the Mountain Mobility Working Group. Jessica, do you have any major updates for the Mountain Mobility Working Group?
Besides the, I don't know, the updated map, was that mentioned here before?
I'm not sure if we mentioned it before, but we do meet like the last Wednesday of the month, and ridership for mountain rides is going strong. And then we're going to be pivoting to working on the volunteer driver program. I know you missed the last meeting, so it's not to like call you out, sorry. Should have prepped. The next, thank you, Maya, for sharing. The next update we have, this is for Rebecca. So Rebecca, she's the IDD Mo-Levy coordinator, and she has a call for like proposals out. Rebecca, are you still on, or did you have to hop off?
No, I'm still here. We have 2 RFPs that people can answer. I just put the link to the webpage. If you go there and there's a tab for RFPs, you'll find out about the 2. One is to increase social and recreational activities within Boulder County for IDD eligible BI, brain injury, and autism. And the second one is to increase direct services in Boulder County for that population as well. And then the only other update I have that I wanted to get out, we will be having our first mental health provider training for dual diagnosis. It will be in April, and so you should look out for that news as well. It's for mental health providers that serve brain injury that are eligible, intellectual and developmental disability, and autism residents of Boulder County to increase the number of providers in Boulder County that take Medicaid and also serve these clients.
Wonderful, thank you. And for the HHS funding opportunity, do you want to speak a little bit to transportation specifically, or I don't know if there's any other?
Well, transportation is on there. I can't really speak to the RFPs once they're out, but if you go there, there is a transportation category on there. There's also a lot of other opportunities for funding as well. Employment, there's recreational programs, social activities that would increase community inclusion for this population. So I would recommend going to that site, look at the RFP tab and see what is available. There are 2 RFPs that you could answer.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Rebecca? Okay, thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate it. And you always do such great work in the community. Thanks for promoting that to the transportation providers. Lisa, I do see your question or comment in the chat. I'll follow up after we do the updates. But thank you so much for adding that. The next item is the RTD Live expansion webinar. So I know that I don't think we have anybody from RTD that attended that. Danny, I don't know if you feel comfortable providing an update on that, or we could do it as well. I could provide an update if you don't feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to give a high level overview. So RTD, as folks, likely know in the room, is expanding its Live program such that more people are eligible for the program and they receive bigger discounts in conjunction with the system-wide fare study and equity analysis that was conducted. So we're doing lots of outreach, including an open house today, just letting folks know what the changes are to the Live income-based discount program. So you can watch that webinar on our Live webpage, the main webpage, and let us know if you have any questions. Did you have anything else, Angel?
Nope, I think that's it. I think one of the highlights would probably be that the income level is 250% federal poverty, which that I'm not sure how many people that expands it to, but that's a lot. And just want to thank RTD for hosting the webinar and also the open houses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that the 250% federal poverty line, folks hear that and they're like, what does that mean? So that roughly translates to a household of 4 making an income of $75,000 would be eligible for the program.
And that's a 50% discount, which is great. It used to be 40%. And then also it's only $27 for a monthly pass if you get Live certified. So that's really affordable. That's like 3 previous day passes, regional day passes. Thank you, Danny, for chiming in.
For sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Next, I'm going to call on Melissa, who hosted a wonderful bike trains webinar.
Hi, everyone. I hope my headphones are working properly now. Let me know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Sweet. Yeah, so last week, I hosted a how to set up bike trains webinar. And thank you to, I recognize some of the folks in the call today were also at that meeting, so thanks for participating. But it was a pretty good discussion, and as a part of that, I wanted to extend the invitation to anyone who in this greater transportation connected circle here who sets up or participates in a bike train, especially with the approaching Bike to School month in May. If anyone participates and uploads the photo of you guys on your journey to our photo submission portal, you could get a gift card. But I will be putting the recorded bike trains webinar in case you missed it in there, and I'll also attach the photo submission website as well. But appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. So, I think just in general, the submission form does have a release, a disclaimer. So just saying that we could also use, we can use those for our brochures or whatever. So just make sure that kids aren't uploading them themselves, but I can't wait to see all of the wonderful bike trains. And kudos to you, Melissa, for doing your first successful webinar for bike trains and walk and bike to enroll to school day.
Thank you. It's a fun and entertaining topic, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Has anybody else heard of bike trains before? I think probably Darcy's heard of them. Melanie's nodding her head. So actually Cammie had helped me set up one for I'm in Jeffco, but when my oldest ended up going to middle school, it was a little bit farther along and farther from our house than the elementary school. So Cami actually helped me set one up when my kiddo went to middle school. I mean, we didn't have parents riding for very long because they were pretty independent after a while, but it helped parents get really comfortable with their kids riding the bikes. I think we had like 7 kids at first, and then it ended up being like a core group of like 4 kiddos that ended up sticking with it. So thanks, Melissa, for putting that in the chat and for putting the photo submission. So hopefully we can get some really good examples of bike trains and people riding their bikes together to school. The next item I have, and I know Marjorie had to hop off, but Commuting Solutions is leading a wayfinding branding study on 119. So, and for those of you who haven't heard the term wayfinding, it's basically like the signage that you have. How do you know where to go when you're on like a pedestrian path or a bike trail? How do you know like where the bus stops? So they're working on the branding of it, and they are collecting feedback. So if you want to throw your opinions in their study, you can go ahead and click on the press release there. And it's really exciting to like see how close we're getting to 119, like starting to really like ramp up when we're starting to focus on the wayfinding and branding. Last but not least, for our like pre-scheduled updates is the RTD National Transit Appreciation messages. So I don't think that Brandon's on the call, but they basically are collecting feedback or collecting messages for transit drivers, transit employees, through the end of this week. And I know that Boulder Transportation Connections was doing it in person on Monday, I think. So I don't know, Darcy or Elaine, if you have anything to add to like collecting messages to show transit employees how important they are.
I'll just chime in, we had a lot of fun on yesterday at the downtown Boulder station, and we did have note papers for people to write notes to their drivers on. That was a lot of fun, and we had Brandon Figliolino from RTD with us there.
Oh, yeah, okay, good idea.
It was really great.
Okay.
But RTD is accepting those messages of gratitude for transit operators through the end of the week. So encourage people to send some of those in virtually.
Yeah, thank you. And I did put the link in the chat also. So if you can go ahead and stop sharing my, does anybody have any other updates that they want to share with the group? Yeah, thank you, Danny. Operators do need love. So any other updates that anybody wants to share? Tim, I haven't seen you in a while. How's everything going at Boulder Housing Partners?
Good. No real updates other than I'm trying to find my camera, but we are just have a number of new developments. So we're going to grow by several hundred units this year. So lots more opportunity for all sorts of transportation.
Yeah, wonderful. And you all are still required to give eco passes for the first 5 years of a development, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's exciting. Can't wait to see him come online here. Ryan?
Hi, so Ryan Schuhard, Boulder City Council, he, him. This is Boulder specific, but just for those interested in that jurisdiction, if you're not following it, City Council has our 2 yearly work plan setting session coming up in a couple of weeks, April 2nd or 3rd or 3rd and 4th. And this is the time when we essentially create our legislative priorities. And I would like items 1 through 10 to be related to transportation. That's just me. And so in any case, I'm in the process of, all of the council members are working towards that dialogue. And this week, I intend to produce a communication to, well, it's called the hotline system, people might know, and there'll be some questions about sort of current state and to help inform our discussion around hopefully transportation topics at the retreat. So in any case, I have some kind of top ideas I'd like to bring forward, but I would just like to make everybody aware who might be interested in that process that this is happening be making some pretty big decisions in the next few weeks. And if anybody would like to reach out to me to either suggest specific things to do, things to think about, questions you have, I'd be most welcome. I think some of you here are on staff for the city, so Natalie is, I talk with her almost daily, I think, so she'd be a good person to connect with if you wanted to engage at that level. So anyway, I'm here. My email's in the chat if anybody wants to reach out. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. Any other updates, maybe from North Front Range MPO, Ride Now Co, or RTD, CPWD? I'm not sure if you all have anything new that you want to share.
Up here in the North Front Range, our biggest, I guess, exciting project is that we're getting very close to launching our new TDS technology that will allow all the volunteer driver programs, or at least the main volunteer driver programs in Larimer and Weld counties, to communicate with one another, as well as with us here at Ride Now Co. So right now, when our mobility specialists provide referrals over the phone, we can share the phone number for these volunteer agencies. Beginning in April, we'll be able to conduct that initial intake over the phone and immediately and seamlessly send that over to those volunteer providers to finish the job, and then hopefully get folks registered and using services quicker and with less phone calls and paperwork. So be really excited to kind of share some lessons learned from that once that hits the ground.
Definitely, I'm going to have you on speed dial because we're launching the volunteer driver program in the mountains. So definitely have lots of questions for Ride Now Co. Thanks for always being willing to share your experience.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny, an update for RTD?
I do have an update. So just a reminder to folks about the May service changes. So we're in the service change cycle where the board approves or doesn't approve service changes next week. I would just recommend that folks provide any feedback and input that you have on the service changes. I'll pop the link into the chat. So notably, one thing that was not clear even to internal staff at RTD is that changes to some of the light rails, specifically the service span, is being reduced for late night service. That is not a temporary change. They intend for that to be a permanent change where, for example, the W line, which I know is not relevant for folks in the room necessarily, but if you're going to the airport, for example, some of the light rails are proposed to stop at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. Yeah, I have feelings about that. I'm sure other people have a lot of feelings about that, but I would just, beg you, if you have input and feedback, please provide it so that we can do best by our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. I appreciate that. And there were a couple of comments in the chat, some of them that came directly to me. So I know that we've lost some of our panelists, but we'll follow up via email, Lisa. So Lisa was interested in how many of the volunteer opportunities are accessible to people in wheelchairs or other mobility devices. So I think that's a really important aspect that we didn't talk about during the panel discussion. Lisa, I see you turned on your camera. Would you like to share anything?
No, I just think, okay, I think that it's one group of people that would probably benefit personally from volunteering. But I'm big on volunteering, as you know. Yeah. So I think these are wonderful organizations, whether it's sit at a table for Meals on Wheels or I'm here, being able to continue my mobility for all stuff despite my many surgeries. It has been wonderful.
Yeah.
And Zoe.
Yeah, we've enjoyed having you, Lisa.
And yeah, I want to do more.
Yeah, and in the chat, Lisa did point out that Jessica and Zoe are the best volunteer bosses. So just like when I elevate
and you.
I thought that was like you were telling me, hey, Angel, tell them that they're the best bosses.
No.
That's great.
Take credit, will you?
Yeah. Well, I know that there's a couple, still have a few more minutes if anybody else, like Our Center, Dr. Mack, City of Boulder. I'm not sure if anybody else, Miranda from Netherlands. Do you all have maybe SPAN? Do you all have any updates that you'd like to share with anybody? Oh, Joni, Was that an accidental phone
Yes.
rate or? Oh, hi.
No. Hi. I was unable to get onto the Mountain Mobility meeting last week or a couple weeks ago, whenever that was, and I am going to still work on setting up a meeting with Leaf and our case manager that serves the mountain areas from Allen's Park to Lyons, just to kind of talk about the mobility issues specific to that corridor. So that's the only update I have. It's not much
Yeah.
of an update.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And you can also invite Jessica and me to that discussion as well as we get ready for the volunteer program.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Angels,
Craig,
I can just do a quick Netherland update. You know, obviously
Yeah.
I'm excited to work on volunteer driver program, but I think the other thing is we're in the middle of our multimodal transportation plan update. And so that's been really great about evaluating alternative modes of transportation, all modes. And so mountain rides, Katrina met with our team, our Fear and Peers consultants to really talk about, you know, how can that program be strengthened. So I think they're going to reach out to you, Angel, maybe soon enough, Carly from Fear and Peers. But really excited to see what the results are from that. And we're heading into kind of the last 4 months of that plan. It's the first time Netherlands has ever had a multimodal transportation.
It's exciting. Also, you have a new car share vehicle now.
We have a new car share. Yes, I know it was covered in snow. New car share is slow to get moving, but the word is getting out there and people who actually do utilize it are loving it. When they sign up, they get $25 credit. So we're hoping that we've seen it really to get out there and moving, but a really exciting addition. And then it was cool to see Lions reach out being like, I'm interested in something similar. So hoping we can get that momentum going. It didn't help when it got completely covered in snow, but I'm excited for it to be driven out and about here soon enough.
Yeah, weathered its first big snowstorm. So that's good. Yeah. So Craig, I know that CPWD has been really active with the legislative session. I don't know if you have anything that you want to share with the group.
Hi everyone, this is Craig with CPWD. Not too many updates legislation wise, but I can mention we have another great partnership with Mobility for All, and starting in April, we're going to be continuing the transportation app workshop series. And last year we hosted it at our Boulder office, and it's going to be hosted in our Longmont office this year, starting in April. So I'm sure you'll start to see emails about that. So please spread the word, and we'd love to get as many consumers and community members there as possible. So you'll be seeing that soon. And then we're also going to be hosting a focus group April 4th with about the Longmont Transportation Mobility Plan. Get feedback from our community on that plan. So lots of exciting stuff coming up in April and through the summer.
Yeah, wonderful. Their Imagine Longmont study that they have. I think we've included it in our newsletter, but that'll be good to see CPWD involved in that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else have updates? Stuff from Dr. Mack? Do you have anything going on new?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of just travel training, and we have our disability etiquette workshop coming up on April 2nd. So if anyone's interested in joining that, we got a lot of good feedback from it last year, so we're excited to bring it back again this year. And we'll have some more perspectives from some of our partners at Empowering Communities Globally, some folks, some immigrants and refugees that kind of had to experience public transportation and navigate the system on their own. So we'll have some perspectives from them on transportation. So it should be a good meeting. I can paste the information in the chat, but it's kind of it for right now.
Can you remind me, is it a virtual training or an in-person? It's virtual, right? Yeah.
Virtual, yeah. On April 2nd from 1:30 to 3.
Okay. And we will include a lot of these links in the newsletter, so you won't have to worry about writing them all down. So unless there's any other last minute updates, I just want to conclude the meeting. We will be meeting in person in April. Oh, sorry, Elaine, did I miss you?
Turn my video. Yeah, I was just remembering, Dr. Cog has just opened up the awards nominations for this year. So it's both transportation and mobility awards, but also just for organizations and plans in the area. I'll put the link in the chat, worth putting some thought in and maybe nominating somebody for those awards. And thankfully, this year, the ceremony will be, I think it's at the DCPA. They had it at Mile High once, and I was like, why do you do that? It's so hard to get to. So at least downtown is a little more accessible.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. That's one of my big pet peeves is like a meeting that is supposed to be tangential to transportation and it's not accessible by transit. So
yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, we are meeting in person. We're going to meet at the brand new Southeast County Hub next April. So I will be bringing some snacks. So if you want to show up a little bit early, like 15 minutes early, we can like chit chat and kind of network a little bit beforehand. And we will be focusing on the Mobility and Access for All Ages and Abilities plan and just like concrete steps for measuring how all of our organizations are working together to advance those strategies. But I just want to thank you all for your time and thank you for all your wonderful questions around volunteer programs and thank all our panelists who are still on the call. Thank you.